Chapter 4000. In the discussion hall. Mo Xingyu looked at Bai Cangming in admiration. There was no lack of envy on his face. Congratulations, Hall Master Bai. The effects of the healing medicine that you made previously had already amazed me. I never thought that you would have already developed a medicine that could completely restrain it in just a few months. It's truly amazing. I'm impressed. That's right, Hall Master Bai. Your speed is simply too fast. It's truly enviable. With Hall Master Bai's wise leadership, Penglai Palace's potential is truly limitless, Ren Fengni from the Crimson Moon sect said. Bai Cangming could not help but smile when he heard their words. You're flattering me. I was only able to develop this medicine because I recruited a genius. This is all thanks to her. In the end, he had not helped Bailey Hongzhuang at all. This medicine was completely refined by Bailey Hongzhuang alone. He did not intend to take advantage of Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing Palace Master Bai's words, I'm really curious as to which genius doctor was able to find a way to break the seal in such a short period of time. Compared to her, our Crimson Moon sect is truly ashamed. Ren Fengni could not help but sigh. When he first heard the news, he even felt that it was a lie. He did not dare to believe it at all. This was because they had been researching this problem for far too many years but had never found a solution. Although Penglai Palace had indeed made significant progress, they were only able to restrain it after all and could not completely break it. It had only been a few months, but Penglai Palace said that they had already developed a solution. This was simply too shocking. However, after he repeatedly confirmed it, everyone told him that this news had indeed come from Penglai Palace. Furthermore, it was extremely reliable. Only then did he believe it to be true. As a result, he decided to head to Penglai Palace almost immediately to find out more about it. Now that he had truly understood this news from Hall Master Bai, he could only feel exceptionally amazed. On one hand, they would be able to buy medicine that could restrain the power of darkness from now on. This was undoubtedly excellent news. On the other hand, Penglai Palace's reputation would definitely soar because of this incident. In the future, the distance between them and Penglai Palace would only increase. It was impossible to say that they were not envious. I've already sent someone to invite her over. She should be here soon. Bai Cangming smiled faintly, but there was a complicated look in the depths of his eyes. If it was possible, he did not want Mo Xingyu to know about Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the other party kept mentioning this matter throughout their conversation. Out of consideration for their feelings, he could not just ignore it, so he could only agree. Over the years, he had often interacted with these two people, so he knew their style very well. He didn't need to think to know that they must be thinking about how to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang into their sect at this moment. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were too outstanding. Once Bailey Hongzhuang joined them, it would be tantamount to obtaining the prescription. In this way, they would no longer need to buy medicine from the Penglai Palace, which would be much more convenient. Chapter 4001. Bai Cangming was also rather worried about this. He did not know what kind of conditions the other party would offer to invite Bailey Hongzhuang. He also did not know if Bailey Hongzhuang would be moved. Bailey Hongzhuang had already become his most important disciple in the entire Penglai Palace. He did not want Bailey Hongzhuang to be poached away like this. Mo Xingyu's gaze would occasionally drift towards the door of the discussion hall. He was constantly thinking about what kind of conditions he should offer in order to attract the other party. Before he had come, the sect master had already given him an order. No matter what the conditions were, as long as he could bring Bailey Hongzhuang back, it would be a great merit. This was because this was the most important matter for their 100 Flowers sect. Their 100 Flowers sect had always been renowned on Penglai Island. Although no one had been able to create this medicine before, almost everyone was certain that once someone succeeded, that person would definitely come from the 100 Flowers sect. Only then would the 100 Flowers sect be worthy of its reputation and status. However, the cultivator who had created the medicine had come from the Penglai Palace. This was undoubtedly a great blow to their reputation. Many people suspected that their 100 Flowers sect did not live up to their reputation. They could not even compare to the Penglai Palace, which was known for its strength. This made them feel extremely embarrassed. Now that things had developed to this point, the only thing they could do was to bring the cultivator back and reduce their influence. Moreover, they had researched this medicine for so long, so they naturally knew how difficult it was to create it. The fact that the other party had been able to create it so quickly proved that the other party was indeed a genius doctor. Once the other party was brought back, it would be a great thing for their 100 Flowers sect. As a result, he had already decided that no matter what conditions the other party offered, he would do his best to satisfy them. Thinking of this, Mo Xingyu could not help but look at Ren Fengni. Ren Fengni probably had the same idea as him. With such a powerful opponent, he would probably have to pay an even greater price to bring the other party back. However, no matter what the price was, it would be worth it as long as the other party was successfully recruited. At that moment, the three people in the hall all had their own thoughts. Just as the three of them were thinking about what might happen, Bailey Hongzhuang, Master Long, and Yi Zihua appeared in their line of sight. Seeing that, Mo Xingyu and Ren Feng and I looked at the three of them. They had seen Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua before. Naturally, they knew that the remaining young lady was Bailey Hongzhuang. Both of them couldn't help but be shocked when they saw her. Even though they'd already heard from Bai Cangming that Bailey Hongzhuang was extremely young, they still couldn't help but be stunned when they saw her with their own eyes. Because he was simply too young. If they weren't mistaken, the woman in front of them was only in her 20s. She was actually able to develop a drug that the 100 Flowers Gate had been unable to develop for so many years. That was simply too shocking. When they thought of this, the two of them could not help but look at Bai Cangming suspiciously. They even suspected that Bai Cangming deliberately found someone else to pretend to be Bailey Hongzhuang in order to fool them. Chapter 4002. She's Bailey Hongzhuang. Ren Fengni couldn't help but ask. That's right. She's Bailey Hongzhuang. You guys must be very surprised. Bai Cangming nodded with a smile on his face. Not just you guys, even I found it hard to believe when I heard that she had developed the medicine. I even specially sent someone to check the efficacy of the medicine, but in the end, it was confirmed that the effect was real. Looking at Bai Cangming's expression, Ren Fengni and Mo Xingyu knew that he wasn't lying. They couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. Heroes indeed come from the young. Miss Bailey really can't judge a book by its cover. Mo Xingyu exclaimed. It's you. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Mo Xingyu in astonishment. She didn't expect to meet him again here. This was already the third time they had met. The first time they met was at the Devil Training Tower. At that time, she was having an alchemy competition with others and specially invited Mo Xingyu to be a witness. Since then, Mo Xingyu had already invited her to the 100 Flowers Gate, but she wasn't free at the moment. The second time they met was at the Golden Flame Auction House. Gao Hanchun and the rest had specially asked LV Dong to cause trouble for them, but they happened to meet Mo Xingyu at that time. It was Mo Xingyu who helped them resolve this problem. At that time, Mo Xingyu had also invited her again. At that time, she did want to take a look at the 100 Flowers Gate, but after being recruited by Long Yanwei to the Penglai Palace, she had never thought of going to the 100 Flowers Gate. She didn't expect to see Mo Xingyu again here today. She was very surprised. It turned out that Mo Xingyu's position in the 100 Flowers Gate was so high that it was beyond her imagination. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's astonished expression, Bai Cangming couldn't help but ask. Bai Cangming couldn't help but ask, Bailey Hongzhuang, did you know Master Mo before? As soon as this was said, Ren Feng and the others' eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. Even Mo Xingyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. He didn't remember when he had seen this lady before. Logically speaking, if he had seen this young lady's beauty before, he shouldn't have forgotten her. Unfortunately, even after searching through his memories, he still couldn't remember when he had seen this young lady before. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "I've met you twice before, but not with my current identity. That's why Master Mo is so surprised to see me." Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Mo Xingyu's eyes flashed with doubt. He asked in surprise, "Miss Bailey, when have we met before?" "I really can't remember." "Master Mo, do you still remember Di Bei?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a faint smile. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Mo Xingyu's eyes suddenly changed. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes changed from the original doubt to a deep shock and surprise. "Could it be that, you're the young Master Di from back then?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. "That's right, I am." Mo Xingyu revealed a look of realization. "I was wondering how you could have such exquisite medical skills at such a young age. So you're the young Master Di from back then. I'm really blind. I didn't realize that you were actually a woman." Chapter 4003. He had already seen how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was back in the magic training tower. Although Bailey Hongzhuang had always tactfully rejected him, he always believed that one day Bailey Hongzhuang would join their 100 Flowers Gate. After all, 100 Flowers Gate was the most suitable place for her to develop. However, he did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to join Penglai Palace, nor did he expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be so powerful to be able to develop such a medicine. If he had known earlier, he would have tried his best to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang back no matter what price he had to pay. At that time, he only tried to recruit her many times but did not offer too many generous conditions. This was because he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's attainments in alchemy were indeed amazing, but it had not yet reached the point of shocking the heavens and earth. Therefore, he only tried to recruit her verbally. Now that he thought about it, it was too late for regrets. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "At that time, it was also because of some reasons that I disguised myself as a woman." "I see." Mo Xinyu replied with a smile. Bai Cangming and the others had been watching the conversation between Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Xinyu. Seeing how familiar the two were, everyone was very surprised. They did not expect the two to already know each other. "Master Mo, so you already know each other?" Ren Fengni could not help but say. Mo Xingyu nodded. "We have known each other for nearly a year, but I did not expect her to be Bailey Hongzhuang." In that case, Master Mo knew Miss Bailey even earlier than she joined Penglai Palace. Ren Fengni immediately calculated, "Then it's a pity that you did not recruit Miss Bailey back then." Ren Fengni's words also had a hint of ridicule. This time, Mo Xingyu and he came with the purpose of recruiting, but they did not expect Mo Xingyu to already know Bailey Hongzhuang and miss this opportunity. Presumably, the latter must be extremely depressed. Ren Fengni found it very funny. Mo Xingyu was already very depressed in his heart. At this moment, when he heard Ren Fengni's sarcasm, he could not help but feel even more unhappy. However, he did not show it on his face and just fell into silence. Long Yanwei and the others could not help but look at each other. They could understand Mo Xingyu's actions back then. If Long Yanwei had not taken a fancy to Bailey Hongzhuang's contract beast, they would not have thought of recruiting Bailey Hongzhuang and the others back. If they did not recruit Bailey Hongzhuang, then it would naturally have nothing to do with their palace. Perhaps, 100 Flowers Gate would have taken advantage of it. In that case, it was really a coincidence. Long Yanwei had really made a great contribution to Penglai Palace. Thinking of this, Yi Zihua couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Fortunately, he had pulled Long Yanwei out with him that day. If it was only him there, he probably wouldn't have thought of recruiting them, not to mention that he didn't have enough conditions to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang, since you already know this Master Mo, I will not introduce him. Bai Cangming slowly said, let me introduce you. This is Ren Fengni from Crimson Moon Sect, Master Ren. Greetings, Master Ren. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed. Chapter 4004. Ren Fengni knew very well that if Bailey Hongzhuang was recruited into the Crimson Moon Sect, then with her ability, her status in the Crimson Moon Sect would definitely not be lower than his. Naturally, he would not be able to accept Bailey Hongzhuang's salute. Master Ren, I'm just an ordinary disciple of the Penglai Palace. You're a master of the Crimson Moon Sect. It's only right for me to salute you. Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Miss Bailey, you've made such a great contribution to the Penglai Palace, but you're still just an ordinary disciple of the Penglai Palace. Ren Fengni's eyes flashed with disbelief. Clearly, he could not believe that Bailey Hongzhuang did not receive any promotion after handing over the prescription to the Penglai Palace. This was a little too unbelievable. Logically speaking, with such a great contribution, her status would definitely be different whether it was in the 100 Flowers Gate or the Crimson Moon Sect. Could it be that it was so difficult for the Penglai Palace to raise their status? After Ren Fengni's reminder, Mo Xingyu's eyes lit up. He was very sure that as long as Bailey Hongzhuang could join the 100 Flowers Gate, then Bailey Hongzhuang's status in the 100 Flowers Gate would definitely not be comparable to an ordinary disciple. Just based on this point alone, they had already defeated the Penglai Palace. Bai Cangming and the others also realized this problem and could not help but be shocked. They really did not expect to give Bailey Hongzhuang such a reward. I'm also planning to raise Bailey Hongzhuang's status, but I haven't thought about what title to give her, so I haven't taken any action yet. Bai Cangming hurriedly said. He did not want to give the other two forces any chance to take advantage of this. I see. Ren Fengni smiled faintly. Even though Bai Cangming concealed it very well, he could still see that this was a last-minute decision by Bai Cangming. Originally, according to his judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang had made such a great contribution to Penglai Palace. Bai Cangming should have given her a great reward. However, based on the current situation, Bai Cangming didn't seem to have done that at all. This meant that Bailey Hongzhuang might not have received the corresponding reward at all. In that case, they would have a chance to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, the Penglai Palace was not inferior to the Crimson Moon Sect in any way. On the contrary, they were even more powerful. If Bai Cangming had given Bailey Hongzhuang a generous reward, it would have been difficult for him to find a chance. Now, it seemed that he still had a lot of opportunities. He couldn't help but feel happy. Lady Bailey, I heard that you have not been to Penglai Island for long. I believe you have not been to our Scarlet Moon Island. If you are free, why don't you come to our Scarlet Moon Sect? I can bring you around for a tour. Ren Feng and I said. Lady Bailey, you promised me that you would come to our 100 Flower Island when you are free. Why don't you take this opportunity to travel around? Mo Xingyu also said. It was not convenient for them to say many things in front of Bai Cangming, and they could not directly state their conditions. If they could talk to him in detail alone, they would have a much higher chance of success. Chapter 4005. Bai Cangming felt a little helpless. He thought that since he was here, Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni wouldn't be able to poach Bailey Hongzhuang even if they wanted to. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned, the two of them wouldn't have the chance to see Bailey Hongzhuang again. He didn't expect that the two of them would be so eager to poach Bailey Hongzhuang that they wanted to meet again. Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua couldn't help but look at each other and shook their heads with a sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang was now highly sought after by all the major forces. It wasn't strange for Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni to behave like this. If they could snatch someone, they would probably want to snatch Bailey Hongzhuang back. Hearing Bai Cangming's words, Mo Xingyu couldn't help but smile and said, Hall Master Bai, I just want to invite Miss Bailey to visit the 100 Flowers Gate. We have many doctors and alchemists who want to interact with Miss Bailey. This kind of interaction is also beneficial to the improvement of both sides' medical skills. Bai Tsangming waved his hand stubbornly. It's not the first time we've met. I know your character very well. This kind of pretense won't work on me. Anyway, Bailey Hongzhuang is a member of our Penglai Palace. You don't have to have any other thoughts. I won't let her go. Bai Tsangming made his attitude clear. Bailey Hongzhuang was the cultivator he valued the most now. He definitely wouldn't let other forces have the chance to poach her. He could naturally give other forces the same treatment. In short, as long as he was still the Hall Master of Penglai Palace, he wouldn't let anyone poach Bailey Hongzhuang. Hall Master Bai, we didn't say that we wanted to poach her. It's just that Miss Bailey is so powerful. We all want to make friends with her. Ren Fengni also spoke up. We have a lot of people in Penglai Palace. If Bailey Hongzhuang wants to make friends, there are plenty of people. Your Red Moon Island is too far away. Why don't you let her stay in Penglai Palace? If there is a chance, I will personally take her to Red Moon Island. Bai Tsangming raised his brows, and his attitude was extremely unyielding. He clearly expressed that he didn't want them to have any ideas. He would absolutely not give them the chance to poach Bailey Hongzhuang. When Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua saw this scene, they immediately felt that it was funny. Sure enough, when the palace master became tough, no matter what you said, he would always have the same attitude. Presumably, the other party would feel helpless when facing such a Bai Tsangming, right? Long Yanwei could not help but sigh. These guys could be considered to have felt what he usually felt. This was the palace master of the Penglai Palace. Bailey Hongzhuang stood quietly at the side. From the looks of the situation, it seemed that she didn't need to answer anything. The palace master had completely rejected them on her behalf. This was good too. He didn't have to think about how to reject Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni. Since the palace master's attitude was so unyielding, the two of them didn't need to think to know her attitude. Hall Master Bai, Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni still didn't give up. They came with a mission this time. If they could complete it, they would definitely be rewarded greatly when they returned. If they couldn't complete it, it would be considered a failure. Master Mo, Master Ren, you don't usually come to our Penglai Palace often. Since I'm here today, why don't I take you around? Chapter 4006. The words that Ren Fengni and Mo Xingyu were about to say were stopped by Bai Tsangming. Upon seeing this, Ren Fengni said, "That's good too. Why don't Miss Bailey come with us?" Bailey Hongzhuang was just about to answer when she saw Bai Tsangming give her a look. She instantly understood and laughed in her heart. "Thank you for your kind intentions, Master Ren, but I still have to go back and cultivate, so I won't be going with you. I believe that the two masters will definitely have fun with the Hall Master around." Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Bai Tsangming's eyes were filled with satisfaction. Bailey Hongzhuang was really smart to be able to understand with just a look. Seeing that Mo Xingyu was about to say something, Yi Zihua hurriedly stood out and said, "Yes, Long Yanwei and I will also tour with the two of you. We will definitely make sure that you enjoy yourselves. Bailey Hongzhuang, since you still have things to do, you can go back first," said Bai Tsangming. "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang responded and cupped her hands towards Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni. "Master Mo, Master Ren, I will take my leave." Her voice fell, and Bailey Hongzhuang turned and left. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang left just like that, Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni could only swallow their words as they felt extremely helpless. Bai Tsangming's attitude really left them with no chance to take advantage of. They definitely did not have a chance today, so they could only think of a way in the future. After Bailey Hongzhuang returned to Long Yanwei's residence, Di Beichen and the rest immediately noticed her figure. Hongzhuang, you're back, said Di Baichen. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly and nodded. Yes. Didn't you just leave not long ago? Why are you back so soon? Wen Ziren was a little surprised. Didn't Master Long and Teacher Yi come back with you? There's nothing for me to do, so I naturally came back very quickly. However, Master Long and the rest have to accompany the tour and probably won't be back anytime soon. Why don't we go back first? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She clearly knew that with the Hall Master, Master Long, and Teacher Yi around, Master Mo and Master Ren would not have the time to look for her. She was also happy to have some peace and quiet. She did not have any thoughts of joining other forces, not to mention that the Hall Master had never mistreated her. Since Master was to say, it to return to Bailey Hongzhuang to meet Master. CTO Hongzhuang's to you to meet Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It's just as we expected. Everyone immediately understood. I knew it. The people from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect definitely wanted to recruit you, but you rejected them? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. You didn't reject them. I didn't need to reject them. The Hall Master had already shut them up. The Hall Master is really amazing. I'm sure the people from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect were also very depressed. Everyone chuckled. Although they did not witness it with their own eyes, the situation must have been very exciting. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang went to the Hall Master's sleeping quarters because Bai Tsangming had said that he would bring her to the treasury to pick a treasure. After knowing that Bai Tsangming had a treasury, Bailey Hongzhuang was very curious as to what kind of treasure the Hall Master would keep. Chapter 4007. When he saw that Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei had arrived, astonishment surfaced in Bai Tsangming's eyes. He asked, why have the two of you come as well? Yi Zihua chuckled. Hall Master, I've long heard that you have a secret treasury, but I've never had the chance to see it. Since Bailey Hongzhuang has come to the treasury to choose, we naturally want to feast our eyes on it. However, Hall Master, you don't have to worry. We're only here to take a look. We won't take the opportunity to take anything away. Long Yanwei maintained his smile at the side. Although he did not say anything, his attitude was very obvious. It was obvious that his thoughts were the same as Yi Zihua's. Normally, the Hall Master loved to enter his secret room. No matter what treasures he had, the Hall Master already knew about them. However, he had never had the chance to see the Hall Master's treasury, so he was very curious. Now that he had the chance, he naturally wanted to see what treasures were in the Hall Master's treasury that could make him act so mysterious. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the palace lord helplessly. She had just gone out today and directly bumped into Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua. At first, when she saw the strange smiles on their faces, she didn't understand what they meant, but now she finally understood. As it turned out, the two of them wanted to use her as a cover to take a look at the Hall Master's treasury. Bai Tsangming glanced at Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua as his expression was filled with helplessness. From the looks of it, if I don't let you see it today, you won't leave? Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua only had brilliant smiles on their faces. They had already made up their minds. No matter what, they had to see the Hall Master's treasury with their own eyes today. Seeing this, Bai Tsangming waved his hand speechlessly. Forget it. On account of Bailey Hongzhuang, I'll let you see it today. As soon as these words came out, Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei's eyes lit up. Today, we can finally feast our eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, this is all because of your face. Instructor Yi, you must be joking. How can I compare to your reputation? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Long Yanwei waved his hand, What Yizihua said is the truth. Previously, we have said more than once that we wanted to come and take a look, but the palace master has never agreed. If it weren't for you, we don't know when we would have the chance to meet. That's right. If it were any other day, I wouldn't let you two see it. Bai Cangming's face was full of approval, who told Bailey Hongzhuang to be a great hero of our Penglai Palace. I only agreed because I wanted to reward her. Hearing the palace master's words, Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed in her heart. It seemed that after Mo Xingyu and Ren Fengni's visit yesterday, her position in the palace master's heart had become even higher. By the way, Bailey Hongzhuang, after Mo Xingyu and the others reminded me yesterday, I just remembered that you have made such great contributions to the Penglai Palace. It's not too suitable for you to be an ordinary disciple. Why don't I give you the title of an instructor in the field of medicine? Bai Cangming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He had neglected this point previously, and now it was time to make up for it. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was still very young, she could be called a master with her attainments in the field of medicine. Chapter 4008. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions, Hall Master. However, there's no need for that. I'll just be an ordinary disciple." It was great that her status in Penglai Palace had risen, but she still had to form a team with everyone. It would be inconvenient if she suddenly had the title of a mentor. Moreover, she didn't really care about these empty titles. After she handed over the prescription, she believed that no one in Penglai Palace would look for trouble with her. Why? Bai Cangming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would definitely not give up such an opportunity. He never expected that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually choose to reject it. It was truly beyond his expectations. Hall Master, Bailey Hongzhuang usually forms a team with everyone to gain experience. If she has the title of a mentor, wouldn't it become a mentor bringing a disciple to gain experience? That would be interesting. Yizihua couldn't help but laugh. I see. Bai Cangming finally understood. However, you should still receive the treatment you deserve. Why don't I greet the mentors in Penglai Palace? You can enjoy the treatment of a mentor in Penglai Palace, but you won't have the title of a mentor. In the future, you'll be treated with the same status as the mentors in Penglai Palace. What do you think? That's not a bad idea. Long Yanwei expressed his agreement. Bailey Hongzhuang, what do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Thank you, Hall Master. Alright, let's go take a look at the treasury first and choose something suitable for you. As soon as Bai Cangming finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the wall in front of her suddenly opened, revealing a passage behind it. So, this was where the Hall Master's treasury was located. Bai Cangming walked at the front while Bailey Hongzhuang followed closely behind. Long Yanwei and Yizihua followed one after another. After they walked in, the door closed again and returned to its original state. Bailey Hongzhuang walked down the stairs bit by bit. She only saw the situation before her clearly when she reached the bottom. This was a very simple secret room. There were several cabinets inside, and some things were placed on top of the cabinets. There weren't many things, but their value was extremely shocking. There were some items that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know what they were, but she saw some heavenly treasures that couldn't even be seen in auctions. Even in her previous life, she rarely had the chance to see such a treasure. As for the other items, she didn't recognize some of them. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The Hall Master's treasures were indeed extraordinary. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was sighing, Long Yanwei and Yizihua's faces also flashed with deep astonishment. Palace Master, I really didn't expect you to have collected so many treasures. Aren't you hiding them a little too deeply? Bai Cangming seemed to be extremely indifferent instead, and he said as if it was a matter of course, if I don't hide them, they might be dug out by all of you at any time. Hall Master, this should be used to describe you who always comes to my secret room, right? Ahem. Bai Changming coughed dryly, and his gaze turned to Bailey Hongzhuang. He said, Bailey Hongzhuang, you can take away any item here, no matter which one you like. Chapter 4009. That's right. Don't stand on ceremony. You must get the best one. Yi Zihua chimed in. Bai Changming glanced at Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei. These two fellows had always wanted to take advantage of him, but they never had the chance. Now, he could only let Bailey Hongzhuang take advantage of this opportunity to take advantage of him. However, he was perfectly willing to do this for Bailey Hongzhuang. This was because the prescription that Bailey Hongzhuang gave him was a very significant treasure. Not only was it a great treasure, but it also carried Bailey Hongzhuang's trust. Therefore, he felt that it was worth it to give Bailey Hongzhuang any reward. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes lit up when they saw the treasures in the room. Although the room was decorated very simply, they knew that none of the treasures were simple. Master, what kind of treasures do you want to choose? Xiao He looked at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. Do you want to choose medicinal herbs? We can help you look for them. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head when she heard that. Let's see if there are any other treasures other than medicinal herbs first. If you see any powerful treasures, you can tell me. She realized that there were many things that she did not recognize other than medicinal herbs and weapons. She had to understand them well. At the very least, it was good to gain some knowledge. The world 1,000 years later would definitely have improved a lot compared to 1,000 years ago. There were many things that she had never seen before. Since she was already living here, she naturally had to understand it well. It would definitely be helpful for her in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked to the front of a sharp sword. Even though she was just standing in front of it, she could feel the sharpness of the sword. This sword is known as the Icy Frost Sword. It is made from 1,000-year cold steel and has an innate ice attribute. When it attacks a cultivator, it will produce a type of ice power that will invade the cultivator's body and cause great destruction. At the same time, it will also greatly increase the cultivator's combat power. Normally, some expensive weapons would also have such an attribute bonus. The reason why I kept this Frost sword is because its ice attribute is invasive, as if it can grow. Once it invades a cultivator's body, it will quickly spread, and no one will be able to stop it in time, Bai Changming explained. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a trace of amazement. This sword actually had such great power, it was truly incomparably powerful. This armor is called the Qian Tortoise Shell. Its defensive capabilities are extremely powerful. Cultivators below the 5th level of astral brilliance will basically have no effect on it. It can protect the user's life. Even cultivators above the 5th level of astral brilliance will be able to defend themselves very well if their attacks land on the armor. Unless the difference in strength between the two parties is too great, there is a possibility that the Qian Tortoise Shell will shatter. However, before it shatters, it will definitely be able to help the cultivator block a fatal attack. Furthermore, when it shatters, it will also trigger a counterattack, allowing the cultivator to have a chance to escape. Bai Changming understood that Bailey Hongzhuang did not understand these things, so he immediately introduced the uses of these items one by one. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two heard about these abnormal abilities, they could not help but sigh in their hearts. As expected of the items collected by the Hallmaster. Each of these effects was more abnormal than the last. Chapter 4010. Even if an ordinary cultivator were to obtain such an armor, he would not be able to cause much damage to a cultivator below the 5th level of astral radiance. If such a treasure appeared in an auction, it would definitely be sold for a sky-high price. However, although other armors would often appear in auctions, none of them could be compared to this Qian tortoise shell. Bai Cangming's eyes were filled with pride when he saw Yi Zihua's astonished expression. I was also very surprised when I first saw this armor. This is the work of an unknown master, but its prowess is far from what an ordinary armor maker can compare to. The palace master's collection is really rich. If we did not see it with our own eyes, we would not have known that there were so many treasures. Long Yanwei could not help but sigh. Usually, he basically put all his attention on his contracted beasts and did not pay much attention to these things. It turned out that the palace master had collected so many other treasures. In any case, I am the palace master. If I don't have any wealth, it would be too inappropriate. Bai Cangming said. Bailey Hongzhuang listened to the conversation between Bai Cangming and the other two and felt that it was interesting. The palace master's relationship with Lord Long and the others was really good. If it was any other faction, no one would speak to the palace master like this. However, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua did not have any scruples in front of the palace master. It was clear that the three of them were good friends in private. Master, what do you think of the cold frost sword? Xiao He could not help but ask. It's very powerful. Do you want it or not? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Why? The cold frost sword is indeed very powerful, but I am not proficient in the ice attribute. Furthermore, the flowing light sword's power is not bad either. It is still suitable for me, so I am not in a hurry to change it. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Master, since the Qian tortoise shell is so powerful, do you want it? Xiao Bai could not help but ask. No need. Bailey Hongzhuang pursed her lips. Although this Qian tortoise shell is very powerful, it's only useful for cultivators below the 5th rank. Although I'm only at the 1st rank, I believe that in the future I'll definitely surpass the 5th rank. At that time, this Qian tortoise shell won't be of much use. If it was in the past, the Qian tortoise shell would indeed be very attractive to her. However, the difference in strength between the two was not great now and she did not have such an urgent desire to obtain it. There were so many treasures in the palace lord's treasury. Since she was already here, she had to choose a treasure that would be most helpful to her. Master, what kind of treasure do you want? I have no idea. Let's take a look first. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes swept over the treasures one by one. Although there were many treasures, she wasn't a greedy person. She only wanted to find the most helpful treasure. When Bai Cangming and the other two saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was slowly choosing and did not seem to be in a hurry, a smile appeared on their faces. From the beginning to the end, they had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang's dazzled expression like that of an ordinary disciple. On the contrary, Bailey Hongzhuang appeared very calm and rational. Bailey Hongzhuang's mentality is indeed not comparable to that of an ordinary disciple. So many treasures have dazzled me, but she is still so calm. Chapter 40:11. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, it would be hard for you to believe that someone as young as her could develop a medicine that can restrain the power of darkness, right? Long Yanwei teased. Yi Zihua could not help but nod. That's true, but I believe that I'm not the only one who thinks that way. Both of you should feel the same way, right? Bai Cangming and Long Yanwei could not help but look at each other. Both of them smiled without saying a word. In fact, not to mention them, probably no one in the entire Penglai Island would be able to guess that. It could only be said that Bailey Hongzhuang could not be judged by common sense. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the various treasures. She had to admit that these treasures were indeed very tempting. There were a few treasures that she could not take her eyes off. For a moment, she could not even decide which treasure to keep. In the face of so many treasures, it was a very painful thing to make a choice. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang was hesitating about which treasure to choose, her gaze suddenly fell on a black stone in the corner. If it wasn't for the fact that the black stone was placed on top of the cabinet, she would have completely ignored it. This treasury looked like it was frequently taken care of. Bailey Hongzhuang was certain that Bai Cangming did not place the black stone here by accident. This meant that the black stone should be a treasure as well. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but walk in front of the black stone. As she got closer to the stone, the look in her eyes quietly changed. That was because she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with the stone. This sense of familiarity felt as if it was born to belong to her. It came inexplicably, but she could not bear to part with it. How strange! Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly surprised. She had never seen such a stone before, so why did she feel such a sense of familiarity? It was too strange. Bai Cangming also noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. After hearing what she said, he thought that Bailey Hongzhuang felt that it was strange to place the black stone here. He immediately explained, "I found this stone by accident. Until now, I still don't know what it's used for. However, I'm sure that it's not an ordinary stone because it's filled with a mysterious and powerful energy." Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua could not help but walk over when they heard Bai Cangming's words. They sized up the stone in front of them. The stone was pitch black and only the size of a fist. It did not look eye-catching at all. If it was thrown into a pile of stones, no one would notice it. However, after sensing it carefully, they realized that it was indeed as Bai Cangming's words, it was filled with a rather strange energy. "Hall Master, have you asked the others if they recognize this stone?" Long Yanwei could not help but ask. Bai Cangming nodded. "When I obtained this stone back then, I specifically asked someone about it, but no one knew. Everyone felt that this stone should be a treasure, but no one could tell what it's used for. I've studied it before and tried all kinds of methods to find out what it does. Unfortunately, this stone didn't have any reaction from beginning to end." Chapter 40:12. Even Bai Cangming could not figure out the use of the stone, which showed how mysterious it was. She felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with the stone. She believed that it was some sort of guidance from the unseen world, and she believed that she might be able to discover the use of the stone. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately said, "Hall Master, I want this stone." The 3 humans and 2 beasts were stunned when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words. They looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. They never thought that she would actually want this black stone. "You want this stone?" Bai Cangming's voice was filled with surprise. There were many treasures in the treasury, and he would not be surprised if Bailey Hongzhuang wanted any of them. However, he found it strange that Bailey Hongzhuang had taken a fancy to this stone. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "Yes. May I know if the Hallmaster will agree?" "Bailey Hongzhuang, have you really thought it through?" Long Yanwei could not help but remind her. "If you choose this, you won't be able to choose anything else." "That's right. Although this stone looks very special, it's useless if we don't know its specific use. You have to think it through." Yi Zihua also spoke up. Many cultivators would be interested in some unknown items, but in reality, it was very easy to lose such a bet. If they could discover its true use, they might have profited, but it might also be useless and a waste of an opportunity. Most importantly, it would be terrible if he couldn't find a way to use this thing after bringing it back. In comparison, there were many treasures here, and many of them were useful to Bailey Hongzhuang. "I've already thought it through." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled in response. She then turned to Bai Cangming. "Hall Master, I want this stone." Bai Cangming nodded when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang's determined look. "Since you've already thought it through, you may take it. However, if you find that it's useless after you bring it back to study, you can also come to me to exchange it for something." "Thank you, Hall Master." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with gratitude. She knew that the Hallmaster had said this because he was worried that she would regret it in the future. Therefore, he had taken the initiative to say this so that she would not be embarrassed to exchange it with him later. Otherwise, even if she brought the stone back, she would not have the chance to exchange it for other treasures if it was useless. This showed the Hallmaster's tolerance and generosity towards her. However, she still believed that she would not regret taking the stone back. This was because this familiar feeling made her feel that this stone was definitely related to her in some way. Although she did not know what kind of connection it was, she believed that she would figure it out sooner or later. After all, since it was not an ordinary rock, it must have its uses. Just that, Bailey Hongzhuang was the Hallmaster to Bai and the Hallmaster of Bai Tsangming's. Long Yanwei and Bai Tsangming clearly could not understand Bailey Hongzhuang's actions. They were even more certain that Bailey Hongzhuang would come to the Hallmaster to exchange it for other treasures very soon. However, they could just treat it as the Hallmaster lending the stone to Bailey Hongzhuang to study for a day. It would not affect anything. Chapter 40:13. Hongzhuang, after you saw the palace master's treasury, did you find that there were many treasures inside? Shangguan was the first to speak. She was really curious about what the palace master's treasury looked like. Unfortunately, they did not have the chance to see it with their own eyes. However, just by thinking about it, they knew that the items collected by the palace master of Penglai Palace would definitely not be simple. It would definitely dazzle and broaden one's horizons. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. There are indeed many treasures and they are all very powerful. These are treasures that can't be seen even in many auctions. Hearing you say this, I'm even more curious. I really want to see it with my own eyes. There will be a chance in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Since they are all treasures, Hongzhuang, you must have also picked an amazing treasure, right? When Xiren's eyes were filled with excitement, naturally, we won't be able to see the palace master's treasury. However, let us see the treasure that you brought back. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a bright smile. She immediately took out the black stone from her cosmos bag. Everyone was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang curiously. They only wanted to know what kind of treasure Bailey Hongzhuang had brought back this time. However, when they saw the item that Bailey Hongzhuang had taken out, everyone could not help but be stunned. Then, a strong sense of astonishment flashed in their eyes. What is this? Shangguan was stunned. A black stone. That's right, that's it. Bailey Hongzhuang replied. You're lying to us, right? Ren Ziheng could not help but speak out. The treasures collected by the palace master were definitely not simple. How could he have collected a stone? Yes, Hongzhuang, we all want to see the treasure that you brought back. Don't tease us now. Ren Zimei also spoke out. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang calmly said, I'm not teasing you. This is the treasure that I chose from the palace master. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's serious expression, everyone could not help but be stunned. Their stunned expressions were filled with disbelief. Is this true? You picked this black stone from the palace master? Shangguan said in disbelief. When Xiren picked up the stone and looked at it carefully, he asked, Hongzhuang, is there anything special about this stone? There seems to be a mysterious and powerful force in this stone, but so far I don't know how to use it, but I think it is really special, so I brought it back. Bailey Hongzhuang explained with a smile. You don't know how to use it? Chu Jinfeng immediately grasped the key point in Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently, her expression filled with helplessness. Indeed, we don't know how to use it yet. The palace master has not studied it yet. Hongzhuang, you chose such a good opportunity to pick such a black stone. Isn't this too wasteful? Shangguan could not help but look up to the sky and sigh. She thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would bring back some amazing treasure. Who would have thought that she would bring back such an inconspicuous stone? It was too much of a pity. Beichen, you have to take care of your wife. This is too much of a waste of opportunity. Ziren spoke out. Chapter 40:14. Listening to Di Beichen's doting words, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile became even more blissful. Yes, as long as I like it. Looking at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's sweet faces, when Ziren could not help but shake his head helplessly. TSK, look at these two people showing off their love. No one else can do this. Why? When Ziren, you have a wife. Could it be that watching them show off their love will provoke you? Ren Zimei chuckled and teased. Ziren shook his head and spread out his hands. Of course I can't stand it. I'm just speaking my mind on behalf of senior brother Ren and the others. Junior brother Wen, this is your opinion. Don't drag me into it. Ren Ziheng said helplessly. Big brother, junior brother Wen has a point. Ren Zimei walked to Ren Ziheng's side. You have been in Penglai Palace for so many years. Logically speaking, you should find me a sister-in-law. Otherwise, you will always be alone. As your sister, I am worried for you. As soon as these words came out, everyone's eyes fell on Ren Ziheng. Senior brother Ren, no matter what, you are still a distinguished and elegant person. In this Penglai Palace, you are also a senior brother figure. Logically speaking, there should be many junior sisters who are interested in you. Could it be that your standards are too high? Why are you still single until now? When Ziren teased. Di Beichen also nodded. It is indeed time to find someone. Seeing that everyone had shifted the question to him, Ren Ziheng was surprised and somewhat helpless. You little girl, are you going to get married now and don't want your big brother anymore? Oh. Di Beicheng raised his eyebrows and looked at Chu Jinfeng and Ren Zimei teasingly. So it is because something good is about to happen. Chu Jinfeng was slightly stunned. Obviously, he did not expect the topic to change to this. However, he quickly calmed down. As long as Zimei and senior brother Ren agree, I have no problem at all. Ren Ziheng also sighed. A grown girl can't be kept at home. Big brother, what are you talking about? I just want you to find a sister-in-law. Don't tease me like this. Ren Zimei's pretty face blushed and her cheeks puffed up. Her eyebrows were full of shyness. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also laughed secretly. Since Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng's relationship had broken, the relationship between the two had progressed rapidly. If this continued, it would not be long it would become a good marriage. After everyone left, Bailey Hongzhuang began to carefully study the black stone in front of her. He could not help but smile. He said, he could not help but smiled and said. Wife, do you think there is something special about this black he? Is. Or you have discovered, you. Based on his understanding of Bailey Hongzhuang, if she did not have some special thoughts about this stone, she would not have chosen to bring it back. Since she brought it back, she must have discovered something. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. I did not discover the use of this stone. According to the palace master, he had found many people to study the use of this stone, but they did not discover anything. It should not be that simple. Hearing this, Di Beichen only looked at Bailey Hongzhuang lovingly, waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to say her reason for doing so. Chapter 40:15. Bailey Hongzhuang raised both her hands and answered truthfully, I do have a special feeling about this stone. I don't know why, but when I saw this stone, I felt an extremely familiar feeling. This feeling. It's as if it should have belonged to me. That's why I chose to bring it back. She believed that this feeling was some sort of guidance from the unseen world. This stone must be something very important to her. Since she had been able to meet it, it must have been fate. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen came to a realization. You feel that it has always belonged to you? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right. Although I've never seen it before, I really do feel that way. Di Beichen slowly took the stone. After sensing it carefully, a trace of astonishment flashed in his eyes. I also feel that the aura emitted by this stone is somewhat familiar. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes narrowed. A trace of interest flashed across her pretty face. You feel that it's familiar as well? Di Beichen nodded. If I'm not mistaken, this aura should be very similar to the aura in your Chaos Ring. Chaos Ring? Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned. She only felt that this aura was very familiar. However, at that moment, she could not figure out why it was so familiar. She did not expect Di Beichen to point it out so directly. It's not the entire Chaos Ring. It's the stone room that leads to the oceanic world. Think about it carefully. Do you feel that the two are somewhat familiar? Di Beichen reminded her. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it carefully. A trace of astonishment flashed across her eyes. Indeed, the auras of these two are somewhat similar. Just then, Baisha ran out from the Chaos Ring. He walked in front of the dark stone and sensed it. Then, he said, Master, this aura is very similar. Not only is it similar to the Chaos Ring, even the White Lion's aura is somewhat similar to it. Di Beichen could not help but exclaim. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the White Lion in front of her. In the past, the White Lion was completely white, but after eating the demon crystal of the demon beasts in the desert world, there were traces of black in its fur. The demonic crystals of the demonic beasts in the oceanic world were also filled with that special black color, so the current White Lion had already turned into a white and black color. That faint black color was somewhat demonic, and it gave people a very special feeling. In the past, the White Lion's fur was pure white and looked very cute. Now, it had a trace of black. Coupled with its increasingly strong body, it looked very mighty and domineering. Indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with shock. No wonder she felt that this stone was so familiar. It turned out that this aura had been lingering around her all this time. It was only because she was already completely familiar with this aura that she did not notice it for a moment. It was just like how it would be difficult for the people around you to notice whether the other party had become fat or skinny every day. However, people who had not seen each other for a long time would be able to tell at a glance. This stone is actually related to the world in the Chaos Ring. This is just too strange. Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face was filled with astonishment. The Chaos Ring had existed for thousands of years. Could it be that this stone is also from thousands of years ago? Chapter 40:16. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently, her eyes looking at the black stone became brighter and brighter. She didn't expect to see something related to the Chaos Ring in Penglai Palace. Suddenly, she felt a sense of familiarity. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others stayed in the cultivation area to cultivate. They had already agreed to go to the training ground in a few days. However, on such days, they found that the atmosphere in Penglai Inner Palace seemed to be a little different. Master Long and Mentor Yi were not in the Inner Palace. Even the Palace Master seemed to be busy with something. This made them feel a little strange. Although Master Long and the others were usually busy, it was the first time they encountered a situation where they were all not in the palace. I don't know what Master Long and the others are busy with. 2 days ago, they hurriedly gave me the contract beast and disappeared. So I have to ask you some questions about contract beasts. Mo Yinjue looked at the dark magic fox in his hand, his eyes shining with a bright and deep light. We are now very familiar with contract beasts. If you have any questions, you can ask us. Although we don't know much about the characteristics of the dark magic fox, most of the questions can be solved. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. I heard that it's not just our Penglai Palace that's like this. A group of experts from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Scarlet Moon sect have also disappeared. Many people are guessing if a war is going to break out between the three major forces. Everyone is panicking, Wen Ziren said. Di Beichen chuckled, in my opinion, the three forces should have united to go to the training ground to find the thing that caused the skeleton to evolve. Master Mo and the others came here to discuss this matter. Now that there is such a big movement, I'm afraid they have found something amazing in the training ground. So they all came out. Beichen, you are really amazing. In fact, this is the case. Ziren nodded. They just released the news that they are not allowed to enter the training ground for 2 days. They can only go in after the notice is released. It seems that something amazing has indeed appeared in the training ground. Let's just wait patiently. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said. Di Yujue finally returned to Penglai Island after traveling for some time. Coming back here again, Di Yujue's heart was filled with excitement. In the past, every time he came here, he couldn't help but feel a little sad. It was because he had brought his child here to play and lost his child. Now, after going around in circles, he actually saw his own son on Penglai Island. When he thought of his son's young and promising appearance, he couldn't help but feel proud. Even though he did not grow up with his parents, Di Beichen still grew up to be extremely outstanding, which made him feel deeply comforted. However, he had met Di Beichen on Penglai Island. Now that such a long time had passed, he did not know where Di Beichen was. However, he believed that Di Beichen had not left Penglai Island and must still be here. Although Penglai Island was not small, as long as he wanted to find it, he would be able to find it very quickly. Therefore, Di Yujue immediately returned to the Golden Flame auction house. Chapter 40:17. Looking at the concerned Di Lao, a trace of a smile couldn't help but appear in the depths of Di Yujue's eyes. All these years, Emperor Elder's concern for this matter was no less than his. He should have stayed in the upper realm, but in order to find Di Beichen, he stayed on Penglai Island. For more than 20 years, Emperor Elder had never returned. I didn't find him, Di Yujue said slowly. Hearing Di Yujue's words, Emperor Elder's hopeful eyes instantly darkened. This time, he heard Di Yujue say that he was very confident, but he didn't expect that he still couldn't find him. He was really worried that he wouldn't be able to see the little young master again in his lifetime. The little young master had been missing for so many years. Although they had never given up looking for him, many people already believed that it was impossible for them to find him. This kind of situation made him feel abnormally depressed. However, I already know who he is, Di Yujue quickly said. Following Di Yujue's words, Emperor Elder couldn't help but be stunned. He raised his eyes in surprise and couldn't react for a moment. Young master, what did you just say? I said, I already know who he is. It's just that when I went over this time, I didn't see him in person. Di Yujue's smile gradually widened. Ever since he knew that Di Beichen was his son, he was ecstatic. Unfortunately, he was the only one who could share his joy. Now that he saw Emperor Elder, he couldn't help but want to share this joy with him. Young master, you mean you found the little young master? Emperor Elder's face couldn't help but reveal a happy smile. Where is the little young master? Why didn't I see him? Emperor Elder, this time, I really shouldn't have doubted your judgment. Di Yujue shook his head and sighed. Actually, we've already seen him before. When Emperor Elder told him that Di Beichen might be the person they were looking for, he didn't believe it at all. He didn't even confirm it. It wasn't until he personally went to the outside world that he realized that Di Baichen really was his son. If he had listened to Emperor Elder and confirmed it before, he would have been able to recognize him long ago. There was no need to wait until today. Emperor Elder looked at Di Yujue in surprise. After he understood what he said, he immediately understood. Young master, you mean, could it be Di Baichen? Recently, he only felt that Di Baichen was a possibility. However, when he mentioned it, young master directly denied it. In fact, he felt that the young master's denial. However, now that the young master suddenly mentioned this matter again, he couldn't think of any other possibilities apart from this one. Di Yujue smiled and nodded. That's right, it's him. This time, I followed the clues I obtained before and found the person who picked up Di Baichen. He was the one who raised Baichen. Moreover, Baichen had that jade pendant on him. I actually saw him long ago, but I didn't recognize him. How foolish. Di Yujue sighed and shook his head. Back then, he still treated Di Baichen as his friend. They chatted happily. He was very surprised. He didn't think that he would actually meet a very congenial young man on Penglai Island. Chapter 40:18. It's really him. Elder D was also in disbelief. Although he had a glimmer of hope, he knew that the chances of success were very small. However, he didn't expect that even though the chances were small, they really met him. Little young master was found to have the cursed body. How could he? The reason he came to the auction house to look for medicinal ingredients was to change his cursed body. This child's fate is truly extraordinary. His wife's medical skills are extremely high, and she forcibly suppressed his cursed body. That's why he's in the state we saw before. We never expected this to happen. That's why we made the wrong judgment. So it's really like this. I also thought that it was too much of a coincidence. I just didn't dare to believe it. Elder D's eyes were slightly red and the corners of his eyes were slightly moist. Good. Good. After so many years, we finally found little young master. If master and the others knew, they would definitely be very happy. Hearing this, Di Yujue also felt a wave of emotion. All these years, every time he went back, he was either scolded badly by master or was rendered speechless by his wife's resentful gaze. Now, when he thought about being able to bring Di Baichen back to acknowledge his ancestors, he felt a wave of joy in his heart. Yes, Elder D, do you know where Baichen and the others have been these days? Di Yujue asked aloud. Right now, he only hoped to find Di Baichen as soon as possible and acknowledge him. Previously, his relationship with Di Baichen was quite good. However, he wasn't sure what kind of reaction Di Baichen would have if he knew that he was his father. If Di Baichen resented him, what should he do? When he thought of all these possibilities, his mood was extremely complicated. Elder D shook his head. Ever since young master left, I heard that little young master came to look for you once. However, you weren't there, so he left. Since then, we have never seen young master again. Previously, he was very concerned about Di Baichen's whereabouts, but after thinking that Di Baichen couldn't be the person they were looking for, he didn't pay too much attention to it. So that's how it is. Di Yujue's eyes dimmed a little, then became firm. We have to find them as soon as possible. However, young master, is young master's wife called Bailey Hongzhuang? Elder D inquired. Di Yujue nodded. That's right, it's her. If it's her, then I think I know where the young master is. Old Emperor's face revealed a happy smile. Recently, Bailey Hongzhuang from Penglai Palace has been in the limelight. It is said that she has developed a drug that can completely restrain the power of darkness. Previously, she had already developed a healing medicine that could restrain the power of darkness. The effect was very obvious, but it couldn't completely restrain it. However, this time, she found the catalyst and was able to completely restrain it. It was because of this that the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect wanted to recruit her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't agree. Since young master's wife is called Bailey Hongzhuang and her medical skills are very good, then it should be her. Chapter 40-19. Ever since his conversation with Di Beichen, he knew that Di Beichen doted on his wife very much. Thinking about it, wherever Bailey Hongzhuang was, he would definitely be there. The two of them would definitely not be separated. A joyful smile appeared on Elder Di's face. He couldn't help but pace back and forth in his old age. That's great. I'll be able to see the young master soon. I'll make a trip to the Penglai Palace. Di Yujue's face was full of smiles. Originally, he was worried that Di Beichen would go somewhere else. If that was the case, it would probably take some time to find him. He didn't expect that Di Beichen would be in the Penglai Palace on Penglai Island. He only needed to look for him. Elder Di nodded repeatedly. Good, good, good. In the next second, Di Yujue quickly left the Golden Flame auction house. He really wanted to reunite with Di Beichen as soon as possible. Apart from seeing his son when he was young, he hadn't interacted with him for more than 20 years. He only hoped that Di Beichen would forgive him. When the time came, he would be able to bring Di Beichen back to his family. Thinking about how happy his family would be when they found out about this, he couldn't help but feel overjoyed. How many years had it been? He had never been so happy. Ever since the teleportation array in the training ground was sealed, all the cultivators in the Penglai Inner Palace had returned. This scene could be said to be the most lively time. Usually, most of the disciples in the Inner Palace were training in the training ground. It was already good enough that half of them stayed in the Inner Palace. Now that everyone had gathered together, they realized that there were actually many people in the Inner Palace. The cultivation area had become the most popular place. Since they couldn't go to the training ground, naturally, most people wanted to cultivate. Therefore, they all rushed to the cultivation area. Fortunately, we came early and occupied the rooms in the cultivation area. Otherwise, if it was now, it wouldn't be easy to get a room. Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but sigh. Recently, he had completely focused all his attention on cultivation. Therefore, he had completely taken root here. I wonder how long it will take before I can enter this training ground. Although I don't have a good impression of that place, it's quite boring to stay in this training area all the time. Chu Jinfeng spread out his hands, a hint of curiosity appearing between his brows. Recently, the discussion about this matter has been getting louder and louder. Usually, the matters of the training grounds are not known to outsiders, but now that so many people have suddenly decided not to go, the people outside can't help but talk about it. I heard that someone came back last night, but there hasn't been any news yet. I'm afraid it will be soon, Ren Ziheng said. It took me so long to come back. Looking at the situation, the things in the training ground should be very difficult to deal with. Mo Yunjue said in a low voice, the experts of the three great powers went together, but they took such a long time, and there was no movement. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Just as everyone was discussing, Ren Zimei quickly ran in front of everyone and said breathlessly, something big has happened. What's the big deal? Ren Ziheng quickly asked. Phew. Ren Zimei gasped for breath. Bailey Hongzhuang poured a cup of tea for her and said, drink some water first. Don't worry, speak slowly. Chapter 40-20. What kind of amazing thing appeared? Chu Jinfeng could not hide his curiosity. We were talking about this before. It seems like a relic has appeared. Ren Zimei said. Now everyone is paying attention to this matter. Everyone is talking about it, but this news is true. It was spread by the teachers in the hall. Relic? Everyone said in unison, their faces flashing with disbelief. Ren Zimei nodded. That's right. It's a relic. Then why would a relic appear in the training grounds? That's a place where dark forces are abundant. Wen Ziren said in astonishment. I don't know about that. When I heard the news, I hurried over to tell you. I heard that the hall master will explain it personally later, so now everyone is rushing to the square. Let's hurry over there too. Ren Zimei said. Then what are we waiting for? Let's hurry over. Di Beichen stood up. Although he had only heard a little bit of the news, he knew that it was definitely not simple. In the next moment, everyone got up and walked out together. As they walked out, they also found that other cultivators were rushing out, as if they were going to the same place. I don't know who left behind the relic, but it actually appeared in the dark lands. It's really a little shocking. Sheng Guanying could not help but sigh. A relic was a rare opportunity. If it had appeared in other places, she would not have found it strange. However, it appeared in the training grounds, which was very strange. It was said that this training grounds had existed for many years. For so many years, not a single blade of grass grew, and it was a place where the skeleton army ran rampant. Who could build a relic here? Usually, there are so many cultivators who go to the training grounds. If someone wanted to build a relic there, it is impossible that no one would have discovered it. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and said. This was already very strange. According to this judgment, there is only one possibility. Di Beichen said slowly. What possibility? This relic has something to do with dark forces. Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue said in unison. After the two of them finished speaking, they realized that the other party had the same thoughts as them. They couldn't help but look at each other and smile. Something to do with the power of darkness? Ziren raised his eyebrows. Then, this ruin should have been left behind many years ago. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That should be the case. Only at that time, it would not be noticed by everyone. If it was later, no one would choose to build a relic in a place where the skeleton army could appear at any time. Maybe it would be destroyed by the skeleton army before it was built. That's true. Ren Ziheng agreed. However, since this ruin can exist in the training grounds for so many years, the restriction must be very powerful. In that case, the experts in the hall haven't been in the hall all this time. Could it be that they went to explore the ruins? Ao Lingxiao said in surprise. As soon as he said this, everyone couldn't help but look at each other. This was very likely. Chapter 40-21. Hearing Ao Lingxiao's words, everyone couldn't help but nod their heads. If anyone can master the power of darkness, then they'll really be a great expert. However, the people of Penglai Island hate the power of darkness. If a cultivator masters such a power, I'm afraid he'll be targeted by others, right? Ren Zimei frowned. Naturally, everyone would want to have an incomparably powerful power. However, once this power was displayed, everyone would target it. It didn't seem to be a good thing. That's a matter of opinion. If he's really so powerful, then no one can be his opponent. What's there to be afraid of? Mo Yinjue said faintly, as if he didn't care about the possibility raised by Ren Zimei. Their Shutian pavilion had always been rejected by everyone. However, weren't there still many people who needed help from them? Even if they didn't like them, they would still secretly come to them for help. The so-called rejection was just a high-sounding excuse. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. There's no good or evil in power itself. It just depends on how the person who masters it uses it. In fact, We don't know what happened hundreds of years ago. No one knows what the person who possessed the power of darkness did, so it's impossible to make a conclusion. That's right. Di Baichen agreed, maybe the person who mastered the power of darkness didn't do anything that angered people. It's just that he was too powerful and made many people feel threatened, so everyone attacked him together. After all, the hunter shoots the bird that sticks out. Anyone who's too outstanding will easily be targeted. Junior brother D's words are reasonable. This time, the experts of the three major forces went to study it for such a long time. Maybe they've already obtained the inheritance. It's a pity. We didn't have the chance to go. Otherwise, if we could obtain this inheritance, our strength would definitely improve greatly. Ren Ziheng couldn't help but sigh. This kind of opportunity wasn't so easy to come by. Once they got hold of it, they would have a meteoric rise. Unfortunately, they didn't even have the chance to understand it. When they found out, it was already the result. Looking at Ren Ziheng's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. Senior brother Ren, don't be sad. There will be more opportunities in the future. That's right. This kind of thing is destined to happen. If it's not destined to happen, then don't force it. If it doesn't happen to us, then there's no point in thinking about it. Ao Lingxiao consoled. As someone from the upper realm, he had a deeper understanding of the power of darkness than anyone else. Naturally, he also understood how powerful the power of darkness was. He did not expect the inheritance of darkness to appear here. If the people from the upper realm were to find out about this opportunity, they would also fight over it. If he could master the power of darkness, perhaps he would be able to snatch his family back from the hands of that bitch. It was a pity that he didn't have the chance to do so until now. Along the way, they discovered that everyone along the way was discussing this matter. That fervent appearance was as if the most lively thing had happened. Chapter 40-22. No wonder they didn't allow any of us to enter earlier. They wanted to monopolize this opportunity. Isn't this a little too unkind? No matter what, we are also disciples of the Penglai Inner Palace. Even if there is a chance, it should be a fair competition. How can they make all of us stay outside and give this chance to them? That's right. This is too much. How can they convince everyone? In an instant, everyone discussed animatedly. Their words were filled with dissatisfaction. Clearly, they had already guessed the general situation. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest could not help but look at each other when they saw this. Looks like everyone has a deep grudge about this. Wen Ziren said with a faint smile. This matter will definitely cause everyone's resentment. After all, it's impossible for anyone not to be moved by such a huge benefit. It would have been fine if everyone didn't know about it. Now that everyone knows about it, they'll definitely be upset. I'm afraid things aren't as we thought. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly, if that's really the case, Penglai Palace doesn't need to tell us about this at all. They can find other reasons to cover up this matter and it won't cause everyone's dissatisfaction. It's a thankless task to tell everyone everything. Di Baichen nodded. That's right. It looks like this matter is a little different from what we thought before. Let's hurry and take a look. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest arrived at their destination, they realized that there were many cultivators around them. At that moment, they had completely surrounded the place and were waiting for the palace master to explain the matter. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest noticed that Master Long and Instructor Yi, who they had not seen before, were here. Master Long obviously noticed them as well and immediately nodded at them. Seeing this, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others all smiled. Not long after, when almost all the disciples had gathered, Bai Cangming's figure slowly appeared in front of everyone. Greetings, Palace Master. All the cultivators bowed together. Their faces were filled with respect. As the Penglai Palace's palace master, Bai Tsangming was extremely powerful and had always been an object of worship and respect. Bai Tsangming nodded slightly as a warm smile appeared on his dignified face. Everyone has arrived. Today, I have something to tell everyone. As soon as Bai Tsangming spoke, the originally clamorous environment instantly quieted down. It was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Only Bai Tsangming's voice resounded in the entire area. I'm sure everyone is very curious about what happened in the training grounds during this period of time. I'll take this opportunity to tell everyone about it. Everyone's gazes became fervent as they looked at Bai Tsangming curiously. They were truly curious about this matter. Previously, we discovered that the skeletons in the training grounds had mysteriously evolved. This attracted our attention, so we joined forces with the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect to investigate this matter. During the research process, we searched for a while and discovered that a ruin had appeared in the training ground. This relic is completely black. When we discovered it, there were many skeletons gathered here. The reason why these skeletons can evolve is all because of this relic. Chapter 40-23. Everyone knew about the recent evolution of the skeleton army, but no one expected that there would be such a complicated reason. According to our judgment, this ruin is probably related to the energy of darkness. The skeleton army is able to obtain nourishment from the energy emitted by this ruin and progress. Therefore, it's very likely that this ruin was left behind by the cultivator who grasped the energy of darkness. Sure enough, this is the case. Di Beichen muttered. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. It seems that this ruin is extremely dangerous. Currently, there are many skeleton armies gathered around this ruin. Moreover, there are restrictions around this ruin, so we can't enter it for a while. In the end, the three great forces have decided to give this opportunity to everyone after a discussion. As soon as he said that, the eyes of all the cultivators present lit up, and intense excitement flashed in their eyes. There's actually such a good opportunity. It's obvious that this ruin is definitely extraordinary. If we can obtain the inheritance, we'll be amazing in the future. Yes, perhaps these skeletons will directly listen to our orders in the future. At that time, when they imagined the scene after obtaining the inheritance of the energy of darkness, their hearts couldn't help but beat faster. This was really a great opportunity. Bai Tsangming had a faint smile on his face as he listened to the discussions of the disciples below the stage. He wasn't anxious at all. After all, this news was indeed very shocking. After a short while, Bai Tsangming continued, "Everyone, please don't get too excited because of this news. According to our judgment, this ruin is extremely dangerous, and there are various unpredictable possibilities inside. Therefore, everyone must be extra careful after entering. No matter what, your own life is the most important." After hearing Bai Tsangming's reminder, everyone recovered from their previous excitement, and a trace of seriousness and solemnity appeared on their faces. As inner palace disciples, all of you have fought with the skeleton army many times, so you naturally know how powerful the skeleton army is. The fact that this ruin can appear in the training grounds and the skeleton army can evolve because of it is obvious that there's a connection between the two. After a joint discussion between the three major forces, we have decided to seal the entrance after you all enter. We will not allow other cultivators to enter in order to avoid any unforeseen circumstances. As a result, once you enter, not only will you face the dangers of the ruins, but you will also face competition with the cultivators of the 100 Flowers sect and the Crimson Moon sect. Swords have no eyes, everyone must be careful. Bai Tsangming's expression turned grave. Although the leaders of the three forces seemed to have a good relationship, they were all competitors in private. Needless to say, the cultivators in their sects would often have conflicts when they were in the training grounds. It could be said that the grudges between them were not small. This time, the inner hall disciples of the three great powers had gathered together, and the scene was absolutely not to be underestimated. Naturally, he hoped that the cultivators in his sect would be able to obtain the inheritance. However, he had to remind everyone that obtaining the inheritance was not an easy task. If they were not careful, they might lose their lives there. Even with his reminder, he could still predict that after this incident, the number of cultivators who died was not small. Chapter 40-24. Upon hearing Bai Cangming's reminder, everyone's expression turned grave. Usually, there were many fights between the disciples of the three major forces, and this time, it would probably erupt. Just the thought of that scene alone was enough to understand how shocking it would be. When facing the skeleton army, I hope that all of you can face the enemy together with the disciples of the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect. When facing the disciples of the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect, I also hope that all of you can support each other. We will follow your instructions, Palace Master. Everyone replied in unison. Bai Cangming revealed a satisfied expression when he saw the reaction of the crowd. This was all that he could do, and the rest would depend on the disciples' own opportunities. The appearance of a relic definitely meant that there was an opportunity. However, the opportunity this time was rather special, and no one knew who would obtain it in the end. Everyone, make your choice within 2 hours. Once you enter, you won't be able to come out anytime soon. Similarly, if you don't enter within 2 hours, you won't have the chance to enter before the relic ends. Yi Zihua stepped forward and explained the situation to everyone. You only have 2 hours to prepare. Regardless of what you need, it's best to prepare it now. If there are no questions, you can start now. As soon as Yi Zihua finished speaking, all the cultivators present were stunned for a moment before they scattered in all directions. It was obvious that everyone had gone to prepare. However, there was also a group of cultivators who looked hesitant. These cultivators were usually weaker and did not have much confidence in participating in such a fight. After all, when such a group of heroes gathered, almost all the cultivators would gather in one place. Faced with a group of Starlight Realm cultivators, it was really difficult for them to defeat them with their abilities. On the contrary, they might even lose their lives for nothing if they went. In the face of benefits, they had to consider carefully whether to preserve their lives or take the risk. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not delay and immediately started to move. Only 2 hours. That's really tight. Everyone doesn't even have time to think. Xiren quickened his pace and could not help but lament. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. I think the three major forces don't want others to know about this and possibly interfere, so they only gave us such a short time. Once they enter, they will seal the entrance and no one else can enter. This is also to protect their own interests. That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, then looked at Ao Lingxiao and the rest. What are your plans? None of you plan to give up, right? Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Ren Ziheng and the others all nodded. Such a good opportunity, whoever gives it up would be a fool. That's right. Although the chances are slim, as long as there's a chance, it's worth a try. What if we succeed? No one knew if this luck would be. If that's the case, then let's go pack up our things. After packing up, we'll meet at the transmission array. Di Beichen said. In the next moment, everyone nodded and returned to their rooms. After this trip, no one knew how long it would take, so they had to be well prepared. Chapter 40-25. After everything was ready, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others gathered at the teleportation array. When they arrived, they saw that the teleportation array was already full of cultivators. At this moment, they were queuing up one after another to be teleported. Such a scene was truly rare to see. From the looks of it, I'm afraid that most of the disciples of the inner hall are here. We packed up fast enough, but I didn't expect that there would be so many people faster than us. Sheng Guanying's eyes were full of amazement. They packed up as fast as they could, but they didn't expect others to be so fast. Such a rare opportunity, no one wants to miss it. It's normal for everyone to have such a reaction. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. There is only a total of 2 hours. If we are slow, maybe the teleportation will be over before it's his turn. That would be a tragedy. For such a big thing, who dares to waste a little time? It's safer to go early. Wen Ziren said with a smile. Ren Ziheng nodded. That's true. When I came, I found that many cultivators were running. We couldn't help but speed up. When they were queuing up, most of the cultivators had already formed a team. They didn't dare to ignore the hall master's reminder. This trip was so dangerous that they had to act with a team to reduce the danger. Therefore, everyone was teleporting in a team with the best relationship they had on normal days. When Ziren and the others used to have a good relationship with other teams, but since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others came to the inner hall, they became a fixed team. After queuing for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were successfully teleported to the training place. There were also many cultivators of the inner hall of Penglai near them. Almost immediately, everyone walked forward without hesitation. According to the direction that the hall master had mentioned before, this relic was in the center of the training place. They had to reach the center as soon as possible to see the relic with their own eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others hurried without stopping. Although the restriction on the relic had not been lifted, no one knew when it would be lifted. Maybe it would be lifted in the blink of an eye. With so many competitors, it was naturally better to arrive as soon as possible. For a time, the group seemed to be competing in speed as they hurried forward. Such a scene had never appeared in the history of the Penglai Palace. The scope of the training ground was very wide. Even if everyone used their fastest speed, it was still not something that could be reached in a short while. At night, the skeleton army appeared. However, this was probably the most fearless time for the Penglai Palace disciples. Normally, a team would have at most 20 people. Facing a large army of skeletons, everyone could only be cautious. However, at that moment, over 100 people were moving together. Merely their auras were completely different. Without any hesitation, everyone took out their weapons and charged towards the skeleton army. Advance courageously. Fearless. The skeleton army obviously didn't expect to encounter such a situation. Under the joint attack of everyone, the speed at which the skeleton army was annihilated was astonishing. The eerie white bones turned into powder under their hands, completely disappearing from the world. Chapter 40-26. We usually have to run and hide whenever we run into these fellows. Now, we can finally slaughter them. Let's show these disgusting fellows our power. We'll kill our way through. Charge. Everyone raised their weapons high as the energy within their bodies surged. Their aura was terrifying. Dazzling and colorful martial arts techniques exploded. They were as dazzling and brilliant as fireworks in the dark night. Even though the skeleton army had evolved, they were still unable to hold on in the face of everyone's crazy attacks. The speed at which they dispersed was very fast. The Lich was chanting with all his might. Bailey Hongzhuang held the nine-tailed zither in her hand and the sound of the zither continued to pour out from her hands. The other cultivators in the group who were proficient in sound attacks also used all their skills to resist the Lich's chanting. In a short period of time, the skeleton army realized that the group's aura was simply too shocking. Immediately, they all entered the pit and disappeared from everyone's sight. When they saw the skeleton army fleeing, everyone could not help but smile brightly. Usually, the skeleton army was their nightmare. They never thought that they would be able to chase the skeleton army away. This feeling was extremely satisfying. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were hurriedly gathering at the center of the training grounds, the 100 Flowers Order and the Crimson Moon sect were not slow either. This was not only a competition for their personal benefits but also for the benefit of their respective sections. After 2 hours, the three great organizations joined forces to seal off the entrance, preventing anyone from entering. Not only that, they had also sealed off the other entrance. Similarly, the people from the upper realm were not allowed to enter. This was because this was a benefit that they had fought for their own cultivators. After 3 days of hurrying, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally arrived at their destination. In their line of sight, the most eye-catching thing was a pitch-black building. In this pitch-black environment, it appeared exceptionally cold and majestic. It was unique and perfectly blended in together. The style of this ruin was completely different from what Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had seen before. Even though the other ruins were also very grand and magnificent, the lines of this building were filled with gentleness. However, the ruins in front of them gave off a cold and sharp feeling, causing them to not dare to approach it. In this dark world, it exuded a unique charm, mystery, coldness, and fatal attraction. Around the ruins, everyone also noticed the large group of skeletons. These skeletons seemed to be guarding the ruins. Liches and skeleton soldiers appeared in large numbers, not to mention the skeleton army. This scale was much more terrifying than the skeleton army that they had encountered in the past. Oh my God, there are so many skeletons gathered here. Isn't this a little too terrifying? Just passing through these skeletons and entering the ruins won't be an easy task. After hearing the temple master's words, I knew that these ruins would not be easy to explore. However, the scene before me is even more frightening and shocking than I had imagined. I finally understand why the experts in the palace stayed here for so long. Who knows how long it would take to kill all these skeletons? Chapter 40-27. This scene is a little terrifying. Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but say. Just looking at the black mass in front of them was enough to make one's scalp numb. Indeed. Shangguan Yingying frowned and looked a little hesitant. There are so many skeletons. How are we going to deal with them? Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and said, I'm afraid it's impossible to deal with them. The only thing we can do is to pass through these skeletons and enter. This is because there are too many skeletons in the training ground. Even if we can kill these skeletons, new skeletons may join in at any time. In this way, there will be no end to it. Just taking turns is enough to grind all of us to death. Hongzhuang is right. Mo Yinjue nodded, we can only outsmart them. However, there are so many skeletons. It will be difficult for us to take advantage of them. Ren Zimei's face was a little ugly. Just looking at the situation in front of them, she felt that the possibility of success was too small. Although there are many skeletons, we have a lot of people. Once the cultivators of the three forces gather, the skeletons won't be able to stop everyone. So the possibility of us taking advantage of them is still very high. Di Beichen smiled faintly. That's right. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. We'll find a way when the time comes. Ren Ziheng agreed. Let's rest here for the time being. Judging from the situation of the restriction, it won't disappear for a while. Why don't we rest here and adjust ourselves to the best condition? Once the restriction disappears, we'll start moving. Bailey Hongzhuang suggested. Chu Jinfeng looked at the faint layer of black restriction in the distance and couldn't help but ask, why don't we try to break this restriction? It can't be broken. Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Mo Yinjue all answered at once. Hearing this, Chu Jinfeng was slightly stunned and asked, why? If it could be broken, the experts of the three forces would have already done it when they came here. They wouldn't have waited until now. Di Baichen explained. I see. Chu Jinfeng finally understood. I'm really muddle-headed. I actually forgot about this. Just as everyone was discussing, they saw the figures of the 100 Flowers Gate disciples in the distance. The 100 Flowers Gate is quite fast as well. They arrived so quickly, Ren Zimei said. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 100 Flowers Gates team and immediately realized that the 100 Flowers Gates team was smaller than the Penglai Palaces. However, the 100 Flowers Gates' focus was on alchemy and medicine. Although they also cultivated, they couldn't compare to the Penglai Palace, which specialized in cultivation. At the same time, the cultivators from the Crimson Moon sect also appeared in another direction. The three major forces stood in three different directions, surrounding the black relic in the center. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the center. However, no one dared to act rashly and alert the skeletons. The three parties were in a balance. Whoever provoked the skeletons first would be at a disadvantage. As a result, even though a large number of cultivators had gathered nearby, it was still extremely quiet. Everyone was waiting for an opportunity to strike. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and began to cultivate. According to her judgment, it would take quite some time for the restriction to disappear. Chapter 40-28. Di Yujue immediately rushed to Penglai Palace. If it was an ordinary person, it would be extremely difficult to enter Penglai Palace. However, for Di Yujue, this was nothing at all. After he arrived at Penglai Palace, he only needed to report his name and walked into Penglai Palace unimpeded. After Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua found out that Di Yujue had actually come to Penglai Palace, they could not help but be surprised. They knew very well that Di Yujue was a person from the upper realm and his status was extremely high. Although their status on Penglai Island was not bad, they were nothing in front of Di Yujue. Young Master Di, we are honored by your presence. Penglai Palace is truly honored. Long Yanwei bowed to Di Yujue, his expression filled with respect. The young and handsome man in front of him was an expert who was stronger than the palace master. In addition to his illustrious background, he was also extremely impressed. Seeing Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua, Di Yujue's face also revealed a smile. So it's young Master Long and young Master Yi. Young Master Di, may I know why you have come to Penglai Palace today? Yi Zihua could not help but ask. Penglai Palace was a very impressive place to others, but to someone like Di Yujue, it was not attractive at all. He was very clear about this point. However, Di Yujue had suddenly come here. There must be something. Otherwise, with how busy Di Yujue was, he would not have come here for a stroll out of boredom. Di Yujue cupped his hands. To be honest, I came to Penglai Palace today to look for someone. I hope that the two of you can help me guide the way. As Di Yujue's voice fell, Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei could not help but look at each other. Both of their eyes flashed with intense surprise. With Di Yujue's status, he actually came to Penglai Palace personally to look for someone. They were really curious about what kind of person was worthy of Di Yujue personally coming to look for someone. Young Master Di, please speak. As long as it's someone from Penglai Palace, we will immediately find him. I wonder if Di Baichen is in Penglai Palace. Di Yujue asked. Hearing the name Di Baichen, they were even more surprised. They had not heard Di Baichen mention anything related to Di Yujue. Di Yujue had not mentioned anything about Di before. Why would he come to look for him today? Seeing Long Yanwei fall into silence, Di Yujue couldn't help but frown slightly. Is Di Baichen not a disciple of Penglai Palace? Only then did Yi Zihua react. He quickly said, "No, no, Di Beichen is our Penglai Palace's inner hall disciple. I wonder why young Master Di is looking for him. He is a child of my Di family. I came to look for him today to reunite with him. I hope the two of you can guide me." Di Yujue said calmly. Di Beichen was their Di family's young master. There was nothing to hide about this. As soon as these words came out, Yi Zihua and Long Yujue could not help but be dumbfounded. Many possibilities flashed through their minds, but no one thought that it would be such a situation. Di Beichen was actually a member of the Di family. Even though both of them had the surname Di, neither of them thought that Di Beichen was from the Di family. Wasn't this a little too shocking? Di Beichen was actually from the upper realm? This was impossible. Chapter 40-29. Yi Zihua's face was also full of confusion. He had never heard of this before. If Di Beichen was a member of the Di family in the upper realm, then there was no need for him to join Penglai Palace at all. It was a complete waste of talent. Most importantly, with Di Beichen's identity, how could he not have a contract beast? Di Yujue looked at Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's surprised expressions and could not help but say, "He is a disciple of my Di family who has been wandering outside. I just received news of him not long ago, so I came to find him. Where is he now? I hope you two can lead the way for me." Listening to Di Yujue, Yi Zihua and Long Yanwei finally understood. They could not help but think of the rumors they had heard before about the Di family. Could it be? Di Beichen was Di Yujue's son who was wandering outside? Looking at the extraordinarily handsome Di Yujue in front of them, and then thinking of the incomparably handsome Di Beichen, it was said that Di Yujue's wife was also a great beauty. Thinking about it this way, it was really possible. After all, there were still a few cultivators with such outstanding looks in the world. "Mr. Di, this is really a bit unfortunate." Long Yanwei responded. "What do you mean?" Di Yujue was a little puzzled. Could it be that Di Beichen is no longer a disciple of your Penglai Palace? At this point, Di Yujue's voice suddenly became colder. If Penglai Palace dared to treat Di Beichen badly, he would not spare Penglai Palace. Seeing that Di Yujue misunderstood his meaning, Long Yanwei quickly explained, "Mr. Di, things are not what you think. Di Beichen is a disciple of our Penglai Palace, but he just entered the training ground to participate in the training. I'm afraid he won't come out for a while." Hearing this, Di Yujue finally understood. "I see. Then I'll go find him." Others did not know about the training ground of Penglai Palace, but he knew very well. This training could be done at any time, but the most important thing now was to meet each other. He already knew from Si Tuyen that Di Beichen had been looking forward to finding his biological parents. He believed that Di Beichen would be happy after knowing all this. After saying this, Di Yujue prepared to turn and leave. Seeing this, Yi Zihua hurriedly stopped Di Yujue. "Mr. Di, you can't enter the training ground now." Di Yujue's footsteps paused slightly while a trace of bewilderment appeared between his brows. "What do you mean?" "The three major forces have made some discoveries in this training ground, so they decided to give this opportunity to the inner palace disciples of the three major forces. Therefore, after the inner palace disciples went to the training ground, the three major forces have already joined forces to seal this teleportation array. It will only be opened after this opportunity is obtained. Mr. Di, since you've already found Di Beichen, I don't think you're in a hurry. Why don't you wait for a while?" Yi Zihua looked at Di Yujue worriedly. If it was an ordinary person, it would be easy for them to stop him. However, facing Di Yujue, they did not have such confidence. If Di Yujue really wanted to barge in, then they really could not stop him. In this way, the alliance of the three major forces would be broken, and things would become much more complicated. Mr. D. Beichen is an extremely outstanding inner palace disciple of our Penglai Palace. You only need to ask around a little to know that he is in the limelight in our Penglai Palace. Chapter 40-30. After all, young people also need to explore and search for their own opportunities. What do you think, Master D? Long Yanwei looked at Di Yujue. This was also an excellent opportunity for Di Beichen. If Di Beichen could obtain the inheritance, it would be very impressive. On the other hand, if Di Yujue decided to force his way in, it would be a huge problem that none of them could stop. Di Yujue frowned. For the sake of a training exercise, you actually sealed the teleportation formation? Hearing this, Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua's expressions were somewhat awkward. This was also something that had never happened before in history. If it was any other day, it would naturally not be a problem. However, in front of Di Yujue, this matter was indeed. It seems that you have made quite a discovery in the training grounds. The light in Di Yujue's eyes changed a little. He then nodded, all right, since that's the case, I'll wait until it's over before returning. He believed that Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua would not dare to lie to him. He only needed to go back and find out the ins and outs of this matter. However, just as Long Yanwei had said, cultivators had their own opportunities. Since Di Beichen had gone, it proved that he valued this opportunity very much. Therefore, as his father, he naturally could not stop him. He had waited for so many years. He did not mind waiting for a little longer. Only after Di Yujue had left did Long Yanwei and Yi Zihua look at each other. Both of them could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. I never thought that Di Beichen was actually a member of the Di family. This is too surprising. Yi Zihua could not help but sigh. For Di Yujue to personally come, I believe that Di Beichen's position in the Di family must be very high. Who knows, he might even be Di Yujue's son. Long Yanwei pondered and nodded, that is indeed a possibility. However, if that is really the case, then Di Beichen will be incredible in the future. Speaking of which, like father, like son, right? Yi Zihua chuckled. Actually, even without the identity of the Di family, Di Beichen will not be an ordinary person in the future. Only Di Beichen and his group were able to leap from the 5th level of the Purple Realm to the 2nd level of the Astral Radiance Realm in such a short time. As an instructor of the Inner Palace, he had seen many outstanding cultivators. However, Di Beichen's group was the only one who could make such a leap within a year. Just the fact that they were able to obtain the inheritances of the Bloodground Abyss and the Demonic Abyss was enough to prove that their talent and potential were extremely shocking. That's true. Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Mo Yunjue are all rare cultivation geniuses. Their future achievements will probably exceed our imagination. However, with the identity of the Di family, Di Beichen was even more impressive. After all, the Di family itself is a very powerful existence. Long Yanwei's eyes were filled with emotion. In his heart, he was also happy for Di Beichen. No matter what, after wandering outside, he finally found out about his own family. This was always something to be happy about. When Di Yujue returned to the Golden Flame auction house, old Di had been waiting for him to return. However, when he saw that Di Yujue had returned alone with no one else beside him, his eyes could not help but flash with a strong sense of doubt. Young master, why are you alone? Did the young master not come back? Is he not in the Penglai Palace? Chapter 40-31. Hearing Di Yujue's words, Elder Di finally relaxed. As long as nothing unexpected happened along the way, there wouldn't be any problems. Young master, the clansmen have been waiting for the return of the young master for many years. Why don't we go to the training grounds and find the young master? The earlier we send this news back to the clan, the happier the old master will be. Du Jue shook his head. I had the same thought as well. However, there seems to be a good opportunity in this training. Since Bei Chen has gone, it proves that he also wants to obtain this opportunity. In the past, he was alone, and we never took care of him. Now that he wants to go out and explore, we naturally can't stop him. When he returns, it won't be too late to meet him. Although the D family had a large family business, the D family's disciples often went out to train. After all, even if the family could provide the disciples with cultivation resources, they couldn't completely rely on the family. If they always relied on the family, their improvement would always be limited. Only by going out to train could they obtain things that truly belonged to them. D. Beichen had been adventuring all these years. Although Elder D didn't see it with his own eyes, the fact that the former could become a first-rate cultivation genius in the outside world was enough to prove his hard work. He didn't want to hinder D. Beichen's development because this was his own destiny. Elder D nodded, "Young master, you're right. I was too anxious." Du Jue smiled faintly. Beichen was able to turn the situation around. It can be seen that he's a blessed person. We don't have to worry too much. Under normal circumstances, the curse physique was almost untreatable in the outside world. This was because this physique was simply too rare. Even if it appeared in the outside world, no one would know that it was because of the physique. However, under such circumstances, D. Beichen's wife was a godly doctor and even changed his physique. This kind of luck, no matter who it was, would probably sigh. The young master's fortune fills the heavens. Then let's wait for his return. A smile appeared on Di Lao's face. Although he did not see D. Beichen, he still put down the big stone in his heart. As long as they found it, it would be something worth celebrating. What happened next was only a matter of time. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat down to cultivate and wait after discovering the relics. They were very calm because they had encountered relics before and knew very well that these relics had very strong restrictions. Even though their current cultivation wasn't weak, the ruins in front of them couldn't be compared to those ruins in the past. Therefore, it was better to wait here quietly for the restriction to disappear. However, although they were aware of this, the other cultivators were not necessarily aware of this. After all, the frequency of the relic appearing was very low. Many cultivators had never seen a relic before and did not know anything about it. Under such circumstances, many cultivators were eager to make a move. With such a good opportunity in front of them, anyone would want to snatch it. As long as he entered earlier, he would have a higher chance of obtaining the inheritance. Immediately, some of the cultivators began to walk towards the ruins. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown and remind, the restriction hasn't disappeared yet, so it's meaningless for you to go there. Chapter 40-32. Junior Sister Bailey, it's useless for you to persuade them. They only want to obtain the inheritance and can't wait to enter the ruins. If you say that, they might think that you're a coward and want to drag them along. Ren Ziheng's expression revealed a hint of helplessness. He had stayed in the inner hall for such a long time, so he had a certain understanding of these matters. In the face of benefits, everyone was not as rational as they usually were. They only wanted to get the treasure as soon as possible. However, other than disturbing the skeletons and sending them to their deaths, there's no point in doing so. Shengguan Yingying frowned and looked a little speechless. That's their own choice, Mo Yunjue said faintly. This kind of thing depended on one's own choice. If they were lucky, they could enter the ruins directly. That would undoubtedly be an advantage. On the contrary, it was their choice to lose their lives. Let them do what they want. We just need to take care of ourselves, Di Baichen also nodded. However, if they continue to disturb the skeleton army might discover our existence. It's very disadvantageous for our Penglai palace. Xiren's expression was solemn and a trace of haze flashed in his eyes. Whether others died or not had nothing to do with him. However, if the skeletons were to be provoked because of this, it was not something he wanted to see. Don't worry. This kind of thing is definitely not only happening in our Penglai Palace's team. There must be many cultivators from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect who can't hold back. Di Baichen's expression was calm and there was no trace of worry on his face. Sure enough, after the Penglai Palace's cultivators began to move, the disciples from the 100 Flowers Gate and the Crimson Moon sect in the other two directions were also eager to move. They all attacked the skeleton army. However, more cultivators chose to stay where they were and pay attention to the movements in front of them. As a group of cultivators approached the ruins from three directions, the skeletons that had been immersed in the light of the ruins noticed them and immediately attacked the cultivators who approached. Bang! 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 The fluctuations of the battle spread out in an instant. The cultivators from the three major forces and the skeleton army began to fight. As the battle became more and more intense, more and more cultivators from the three forces joined in. In a short period of time, a huge battlefield was formed. Both the skeletons and the cultivators were injured. Everyone wanted to pass through the army of skeletons and enter the ruins. The faint smell of blood permeated the air. Even though there were quite a number of cultivators from the three major forces, the number of skeletons was even greater. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest of the 9 stood in their original positions without moving. Their gazes were fixed on the battlefield as a complicated light flickered in their eyes. It seems that my previous judgment was not wrong. These skeletons will continue to replenish themselves. Her ink-black phoenix-like eyes were filled with understanding. She had thought that such a situation would happen before, and now the cultivators of the three major forces had made her certain of it through the battle. Cultivators from the three major forces kept dying. Although the number of skeletons that disappeared was greater, they were quickly replenished. Chapter 40-33. Based on the current situation, even if the barrier disappears, it'll be very difficult for us to get close to the ruins. Ren Ziheng's expression was rather solemn. Based on the skeleton's behavior, they would have to pass through the skeleton army if they wanted to enter the ruins. If they could not pass through, they could only watch helplessly as the ruins lay before them. It would be useless. Looks like this is the reason why the three great authorities have decided to give this opportunity to us. Di Baichen muttered to himself as his eyes rippled with a thoughtful light. The skeleton army's numbers are simply too great. If there are only a few of us, we won't be able to break through the skeleton army's defense. Hence, only cultivators from the three great authorities can join forces to have a chance. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Indeed, we'll still have a chance when everyone joins forces. After all, many people from each organization had come. If they joined forces, they would form a huge team. As long as they attacked together, they would be able to enter the ruins once they found a breakthrough. However, it was obviously impossible to destroy all the skeletons. The only thing they could do was to seize the opportunity and rush in. If they were too slow, once the number of cultivators dwindled, they would not be able to rush in. Many cultivators have already fallen. If this continues, the situation won't be too good. Ren Zimei could not help but comment. It's only temporary. Mo Yinjue's expression was cold. Once they find out that they won't be able to pass through, everyone will stop sending themselves to their deaths. There will still be quite a number of cultivators left. Yinjue is right. It won't be long before they retreat. Di Baichen chimed in. Let's wait here patiently. At that moment, only a small number of cultivators had rushed forward. Most of the cultivators were very rational and did not attack immediately. After half an hour, a cultivator finally took the opportunity to approach the barrier. His face flickered with excitement. He finally had a chance to enter the ruins. Once he entered, he would be the first cultivator to enter the ruins. He would seize the opportunity. Many cultivators at the back looked envious. It was such a good opportunity. As long as they were one step faster, they would be one step closer to success. However, when the cultivator approached the restriction, he used his strongest power to attack the restriction. Unfortunately, the restriction did not react at all. That attack didn't even leave the slightest ripple on the restriction before it dissipated into nothingness. Seeing this, the cultivator couldn't help but be dumbfounded. This situation had completely exceeded his expectations. While the cultivator was still in a daze, the skeleton soldiers behind him immediately attacked and chopped off his head without giving him a chance to say anything. Following this scene, the cultivators at the back all sobered up a little. It turned out that merely passing through the army of skeletons was of no use because it was simply impossible to break through this layer of restriction. Some of the cultivators at the back immediately chose to retreat. After the first person retreated, the other cultivators also retreated one after another. Even if they passed through the army of skeletons, it would be useless. So why should they risk their lives at this moment? Chapter 40-34. At that moment, the crowd stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others with a complicated look in their eyes. Even though most people were convinced by Bailey Hongzhuang, that was only in the area of Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills. After all, she was still very young. Even though her cultivation has surpassed many people, no one believed that her experience would surpass theirs. Unfortunately, reality proved them that Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment was not wrong at all. They were wrong. The surroundings fell silent once again. After the cultivators had retreated, the skeleton army did not seem to have any intention of pursuing them. Instead, after the crowd had retreated from their area of influence, they stopped in their tracks and immersed themselves in the glory of the ruins as if they were on a pilgrimage. Looking at this situation, everyone felt uneasy in their hearts. Based on the skeleton army's behavior, they could tell that the ruins were a sacred place in their hearts. They wondered what the inheritance here would be like. Bailey Hongzhuang closed her eyes and began to circulate the heaven-defying technique in her body. She could faintly sense an inexplicable familiarity with the ruins in front of her. She found it hard to believe. This was the first time she had come into contact with the power of darkness ever since she had arrived at this training ground. It should have been extremely foreign to her, so why did she feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity? This sense of familiarity was similar to the black stone she had received from the palace master. It had an inexplicable attraction. Could it be that black stone was also related to the power of darkness? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. That's not right. If the black stone was filled with the power of darkness, based on the palace master and the others' understanding of the power of darkness, how could they not have figured it out after such a long time? Hongzhuang, what are you thinking about? You look like you have a lot on your mind. Shangguan noticed the expression on Bailey Hongzhuang's face and could not help but ask with concern. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. It's nothing, I'm just thinking that these ruins aren't as simple as they seem. I've never seen such a strange ruin before. I wonder what I'll see after entering. Could it be that this place is also filled with skeletons? Chu Jinfeng couldn't help but sigh. After all, these skeletons were inanimate objects and didn't need to eat. They only needed to be nourished by the energy of darkness. Therefore, it wasn't impossible for the skeleton army to exist in these ruins. Renzime couldn't help but shudder. She shrugged her shoulders and said, "It can't be that bad, right? Now that you mention it, I feel like this ruin is even more sinister. Everything is possible. Maybe the thing inside is even more terrifying than this skeleton army. No matter what, we have to be mentally prepared." Di Baichen's eyes darkened. Bai Canming's warning was definitely not groundless. Not only were there various competitions, but the ruins were also filled with danger. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others waited outside for 3 days before they saw the restriction gradually fade. Every time the ruin appeared from underground, it meant that the restriction was gradually fading away. However, it would still remain for a period of time after it emerged from the ground until the restriction was completely gone. The color of the restriction became more and more turbulent, and there were even faint ripples. When the cultivators from the 3 great organizations saw this, they couldn't help but feel elated. Chapter 40-35. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes stared at the faint restrictive spell. She used her mental strength to sense the strength of the restrictive spell and made a judgment. "So, we're going to break into the ruins at night?" Shengguan Yingying's beautiful eyes flickered with astonishment. At night, the skeleton army's strength is at its strongest. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said with certainty, "This might be the intention of the original owner of the ruins. The power of darkness belongs to darkness, so it's naturally different from other ruins." Ren Ziheng, Chu Jinfeng, and Ren Zime all looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in amazement. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to know so much about the ruins at such a young age. In comparison, although they had heard of the ruins, they had never seen it. So, all of their judgments about the ruins were still stuck in the books. After all, the ruins were treasures that could only be found by chance. It wasn't something that anyone would have the chance to encounter. Then we have to be prepared. We can move at any time. We have to pay close attention. Ao Lingxiao said in a deep voice. This was an opportunity that was hard to come by. They had to give it their all. Night slowly fell. The restrictive spell of the ruins became fainter and fainter. It could disappear at any time. The group of skeletons still maintained their previous state as if they didn't feel the difference in the restrictive spell. This time, no one acted recklessly. After suffering the loss last time, no one wanted to do it again. After all, they were surrounded by skeletons. If they couldn't break into the restrictive spell at the first moment, it would be very uncomfortable to stay in the encirclement. Finally, under everyone's waiting, the restrictive spell completely disappeared. The moment the restrictive spell disappeared, the atmosphere seemed to freeze for a moment. Then, everyone started to charge at the fastest speed possible. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't delay and rushed towards the ruins. They knew very well that they had the highest chance of breaking through when there were more people. Once they fell behind, it would be very difficult to break through the endless skeleton army. Origin energy surged in all the cultivators' bodies at the same time. The energy in the air was attracted by such a huge force and became chaotic. With so many people using martial skills at the same time, it was truly an extremely terrifying scene. When the skeleton army saw the cultivators of the 3 major forces charging forward, they immediately began to meet the enemy. It was obvious that they were guarding the ruins to the death, not allowing anyone to enter. A great battle broke out in an instant. The practitioners and the skeletons intertwined with each other and dispersed the ink-like darkness. Countless martial techniques were unleashed one after another. With blinding light and unparalleled power, they swept across the entire area. The skeleton army was annihilated at an extremely fast speed, but it was replenished at an even faster speed. The skeleton soldiers organized the skeleton army. Even though they no longer had any signs of life, this martial technique was still filled with tyrannical power when used by them. This was a battle between humans and skeletons, and it was a battle that erupted in an instant. A cool breeze blew by, carrying with it a faint smell of blood and killing intent. Everyone was doing their best to advance. At this moment, all the cultivators only had one goal, and that was to destroy the obstacles in front of them and enter the ruins. Chapter 40-36. We have to maintain our formation. We can't be separated. Di Baichen reminded everyone, we don't know what we'll encounter after entering the ruins. It's safest to enter as a group. Everyone nodded. Although they had yet to enter the ruins, they could already foresee the risks. Every time they pursued the inheritance, they would encounter various tests. Once they failed the test, it was very likely that they would be injured or even die. However, wealth came from danger. Since they wanted to obtain the inheritance, they had to fight for it. Under such circumstances, the only thing they could do was to move as a group. At least that would increase their safety. The strength of these skeletons is a little abnormal. They're much stronger than the skeletons we've encountered before. Even the combat power of ordinary skeletons can't be underestimated. Renzimei's face was a little ugly. After exchanging blows with the skeletons, she felt a strong pressure. Even with her strength, it was very difficult to deal with it. These skeletons have evolved under the nourishment of the power of the ruins. Their combat power has greatly increased. They can't be compared to before, so everyone must be careful. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was a little solemn. The skeleton army had evolved because of the ruins. The skeleton army had stayed here for such a long time, so it was expected that they would have such an evolution. However, this also made it very difficult for them to approach the ruins. It was definitely not easy to get close. Di Baichen, Mo Yinjue, and Bailey Hongzhuang were the strongest cultivators in the team. Therefore, the three of them walked at the front and constantly used their powerful martial skills to open up the path for everyone. Xiren and the others followed closely behind. However, they did not dare to be negligent. They also attacked wave after wave, maintaining their vigilance and safety. It was a completely chaotic battle. There were cultivators and skeletons everywhere. They even had to be extra careful when fighting because the slightest carelessness could cause them to accidentally injure other cultivators. After all, at their level of cultivation, the destructive power of a single martial skill would be enormous, and the area of effect would be similarly vast. The two sides continued to exchange blows. The stronger cultivators could be said to be attacking all the way, while the weaker cultivators tried to follow behind these strong cultivators and take advantage of the moment when everyone was not paying attention to them to sneak in. All of a sudden, it could be said that everyone displayed their skills, as long as it was effective, they used all of them. Boom! Boom! Earth-shaking shockwaves continued to spread out, and the entire ground seemed to begin to tremble. The ground cracked inch by inch, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared. Such a scene was truly shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang's group continued to move forward. There were many skeletons in the army, so their speed was not considered slow. However, when they were halfway there, a team suddenly blocked their path. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others frowned. They could tell from the other party's robes that he was a member of the Crimson Moon sect. However, they clearly did not recognize him. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others wanted to go around them and continue moving forward. However, the other party blocked their path once again. Instantly, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but narrow her eyes and stare at the other party in an unfriendly manner. What are you doing? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.